Hello, welcome to Full Record Jacket with Phil and Ben. I'm Phil. There's Ben.
This.
And, on this particular episode, it's simply recent listening. What have we been listening to? We won't lie to you. We're not going to make up cool stuff just to try and be cool. We're going to tell you what we really have been listening to. So, Ben, time for you to go first.
Well, we've been listening to a lot of 90s one-hit wonders this week, haven't we? But on the old vinyl player behind me, well, I've been listening to this here. This album right here by Wolfgang Perez. Very cool album, worth a listen. I'd fully recommend. It's quite... I don't know what the best way to describe it is. It's like upbeat, funky. It's got a really cool vibe to it. So, it's there and it's on the player behind me. So go check it out if you haven't already. It's worth a listen. I only got it this week as well, so I'd never heard of him before. But where have you gone?
Sorry, I was just picking up something off the floor.
You get into the flow. But yeah, it's a very good album, this one. It's got a cool album cover. But yeah, it's worth a listen. I'm quite a bit hard to describe the kind of genre it is, but
I don't know it at all, I must admit.
It just makes you happy, I suppose. It's not going to make you. It's not going to complicate your life. It's very happy, very cool, It's quirky. That's the word I'm looking for. Quirky. It's got a very quirky feel. It's got a very cool vocal and a very sort of just sonically very quirky. But I really enjoyed it, and I picked it up this week. And so yeah, worth listening, Phil, if you can get it into your ears.
Okay, well, you just said a word that one of the words you just said will give you a clue as to what I've been listening to. Now, we have had to listen because of our little challenge we've been doing on 90s one-hit wonders to listen to a lot of cheesy pop of the 90s.
Yeah.
I kind of took the antidote to that, and I've been listening to the exact opposite of that from the 90s. So can you tell me, Ben, who is this band? Do you know who these are?
Oh, do you know what? The image isn't particularly clear, but that looks like three gentlemen, is it? And a lady type.
Yeah.
I was going to say she looks a little bit like... It's not Kaneki.
No.
St. Etienne?
Now, these two, actually, this is a bit of a clue because that's their daughter they had at the time. Those two were married. Those two members of the band were married. And the fact that he cheated on her was the reason that the band split up.
Ooh, it's not Fleetwood Mac then.
And they split up in 2011, I think it was.
I do know who this is, and I can't think of the name. I remember reading about it.
You said the word Sonic.
Sonic Youth.
It is Sonic Youth and Washing Machine from '96. So if you like long guitar jams and whacked out New York arty rock, then you may like this album. If that sort of thing is not your thing, you should perhaps avoid it at all costs because it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I do like a bit of Sonic Youth. So what else have you got on your list, Ben?
I've got it here. I was listening to this earlier today. It's The Nearer the Fountain, the more pure the stream flows. Damon Albarn's solo album from 2021.
Now that's interesting, yeah. From you, because you were an Oasis kid and you weren't all that disposed towards the Blur.
I'm not. I'm still not a massive Blur fan. I mean, I like Coffee and TV and Song 2, but it's all a bit apples and pears.
So how's this Damon project? I don't really know it. I must confess.
He's had quite a few. Obviously, he's had Gorillaz, The Good, the Bad, and the Queen. If you're expecting upbeat Blur, it's definitely not that. It's quite dark, reflective. The album cover sort of tells you that it's just a really good album. Don't put it on if you're, wanting to be happy. But if you want something that's sonically great, good, thoughtful, not provocative, but thought-provoking. It's just a very good reflective album, something you wouldn't expect from Apples and Pears, Gore Blimey Governor, even though they're from Essex, I think. But no, it's a very good album, really, really good. I picked this up yesterday, which will mean absolutely nothing to nobody if they're watching this in a month's time, because then I picked it up 31 days ago.
Okay.
But I was listening to this today. I was doing some housework. Very good album. David Albarn there. The nearer the fountain, more pure the stream flows.
Well, this next band, for me, I actually went out running today and I actually had these on in my little Bluetooth headphones. I must be in the mood for New York Guitars. So you can do a guess the band on this, Ben. I'll put their photo past in front of you, okay? You've got to guess the band. Can you name it? They're gonna shoot past you upside down. You ready for this? Here we go. Here they come.
What era are we talking about?
Here they come. Well, you can kind of guess. It's not that... Well, it's in the last 20 years.
Strokes.
It is the Strokes, and it's their second album, Room on Fire, which I defend. I think it's up there with the debut album. It doesn't have as many obvious hits on it as the debut album, but it's still...
The debut album is amazing.
Yeah, I still like that as a second album, but it takes a little bit longer to get into. But,
yeah.
He's a great guitarist, Albert Hammond Jr. Do you know he's the son of Albert Hammond?
Yeah.
Albert Hammond, his father, wrote a number of hit songs in the 60s. The most famous one probably being "The Air That I Breathe," that was done by the Hollies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have anything to do with the Hammond organ, did he?
No.
Good.
No.
What an awful instrument.
You don't like a bit of Hammond?
No.
I think it has a place in rock and roll. I think there is some great Hammond stuff, but it depends on the record.
Yeah, I do like that Strokes first album. I bought the CD before they reissued it after September the 11th and took off the New York City Cops song.
Yeah. Did that only happen? Now, I remember, so I was quite into the build-up to the Strokes' first album. And I remember I had heard the song New York City Cops before the album came out. I heard some of it leaked on Napster and some of it had come out officially. But when the 9/11 attacks happened and the album was about to be released, they changed the track listing of the US version and took off New York City Cops and put on instead its B-side, which is a song called When It Started. That was put on the American version of the album, which also had a different cover to the European version.
Oh, without the bottom on it.
Yeah, when the European version came out with the bottom and the glove, that had New York City Cops on. I didn't think they'd taken it off for Europe.
They did, but I could be wrong. I know it doesn't appear. I've got it on 2 vinyls, and one of the vinyls it's not on there.
Okay, well, I think the one without it is the original US track listing. I don't know whether it's been reissued in America with the change, but certainly the Strokes intended to put New York City Cops on the album, but because it was a bit disparaging about the New York police, they felt it was inappropriate in the wake of so many of them being killed on 9/11. So that's your Strokes facts. I can't think of any more Strokes facts for the moment. I think we had enough there, really, haven't we? Any more that you've had on?
They're cool clothes, as a fact. So
cooler than me, for sure.
Now, this next album I've been listening to this week, that's how I've been listening to it. I've had it on, haven't fully, properly listened to it. You know, I'm bad at this. Buy music and then I have it on, but then I'm caught up in doing everything else. But I think it's a quality cover. I love, we've talked about doing a show about great albums, awful covers. I love the cover on this. And it's Wings at the Speed of Sound. Now,
is it the front cover that you like or the back bit?
What? I don't mind the back, even though at first I thought, I presume this is Denny Lane here I'm pointing at.
Yeah.
At first I thought, oh God, that's Phil Collins, and I almost launched it. But no, the front cover, I just love the simplicity of it. It just...
Did the letters stand up or anything on the front? Is it just a flat? That's just a flat image.
Flat, yeah. This is just a flat one. Do you reckon he employed Denny Lane because it sounded like a Beatles hit?
It is a weird one, isn't it? That his name is very similar to one of Paul McCartney's celebrated songs.
And I'll tell you one thing it does. You know, the American, this album cover here, it does hit home one thing the Americans think about us, is that we've all got bad teeth. Because all I'm going to say is, these people need a dentist, an orthodontist, one of the two. So I need to really get back to listen to it properly. It's probably not the best Wings album of all time.
No, it does have... well, the big hit on there is Silly Love Songs, but it also has Beware My Love, which is a great rock song.
Yeah, yeah. And compared to... Is it London Town? Did that come out? That came out after this, didn't it? Awful album cover. Great album cover. So that's what I'm going to say. But yeah, I need to probably put a bit more of that on and listen to it a bit fuller. Bad teeth, get a dentist. So
well, that's interesting that you had that, because I've also been... I've also had an album on from the 70s by a former Beatle. Can you guess which one this is? If I give you a clue and told you that there was no place like Nome...
George Harrison, All Things Must Pass.
It is indeed George Harrison, All Things Must Pass. This is the 2001 reissue, which kind of looks nice. You don't get a huge amount inside it, but George was actually still alive when they put this reissue together.
Yeah.
So he had a bit of fun, colorized the cover, because I think the original was black and white.
Was it black and white, or was it that sort of...
Or sort of a sepia kind of...
Sepia, yeah.
It was different to that anyway. And then he had, for the CDs that come in little cases, he did that. And then he did... To show you what it went then. That someone started to build a bridge and some more skyscrapers. And then for the booklet, it had ended up being completely concreted over. And that was George. That was George's little environmental thing.
Yeah. Have you? You haven't spent the, I don't know how much is, £1,800 on the Uber box?
Oddly enough, no, I haven't. I certainly haven't bought the Uber one. I haven't bought the 50th anniversary edition either. I have listened on streaming because they've remixed it.
Did it sound better?
In the sleeve notes of this, George Harrison said he actually worked on this with Dhani, his son, and there's one of the songs that was not on the original album called I Live For You, which they put on this as a bonus track. And Dhani plays a bit of guitar on it. Very good track. He says in the sleeve notes that he found that there was a bit too much echo on the album, and because it's produced by Phil Spector, and just very, very brief, I don't want to go too nerdy on this, because Phil Spector had worked briefly with the Beatles, or he had worked on Beatles tapes. He had put the overdubs onto the Let It Be album,
Long and Winding Road, being a
Long and Winding Road, the string arrangement on the Long and Winding Road, which so annoyed Paul McCartney because it was done without his consent. And then, of course, John Lennon worked with Phil Spector on
The Wall of Sound.
Songs like Instant Karma is a Phil Spector production, and obviously also the Imagine album, it's a Phil Spector production. So he was quite in with Phil Spector. I don't know exactly why George Harrison worked with Phil Spector on All Things Must Pass, because it was recorded, I think, at Abbey Road. He could have worked easily, I'm sure, with George Martin. Maybe he just wanted to separate himself more from the Beatles thing. But they've remixed it for this most recent reissue because they've tried to take away some of Phil Spector's wall of sound or reverb.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, that Phil Spector... although he was always quite a bizarre character, ended up being very bizarre.
I mean, he's not done anything controversial.
But he knew what he was doing in terms of making his records. And the thing with Spector, of course, is he did a lot of it in the moment, and it wasn't always multi-track. So a lot of stuff was recorded to make this wall of sound, which you can't then easily extract again to remix it. A lot of it's sort of hard-baked onto the tapes, if you like. Whether they could actually do it again with the technology they've just used on the Beatles Revolver, I don't know.
But they pick apart all the individual drums.
But I personally, these experiments with these remixings, they're okay. I'm not against them. I'm not a purist who's totally against them. But sometimes I'm just like, I'll just leave it as is. I'll just listen to the original.
A bit like Noel Gallagher would be here now.
But the remixes can give you a different angle on it, and they can also help you appreciate it. And I'm not saying some tracks do sometimes sound better in the remix, but I'm also quite happy to just hear it as it came out. But yeah, great album. Obviously, All Things Must Pass.
I think in that Uber box set, I think you get some gnomes in it, don't you?
You can buy, I don't know if it's still available, there was a limited edition wooden box with, it's a fairly big thing. You get all the vinyl in there, all nice 180 gram vinyl of all the outtakes and all the stuff that was released as part of that anniversary Super Deluxe. You get a nice hardback book, obviously, photos and stuff. I think you get some big prints of the photos of George Harrison from the time. And then you get these gnomes that are reproductions of these gnomes, which were the real gnomes that George had in his gardens at Friar Park, his mansion that he bought in the 60s. And yeah, why you'd want George Harrison's gnomes, I don't know, put them on your mantelpiece, I suppose.
Yeah. Could do, I suppose.
But there you go.
I've had worse on my mantelpiece.
That is what I've been listening to. Is that the sum total of what you've put in your ears this week, Ben?
No, the last one I've been listening to is, you can see him there, just coming off the football field. I did buy
another
this.
60s icon.
Yeah, Burt Bacharach. This is basically the music. There's a couple of bits of vocal on it. It's basically the music, which is good, and it's a good album. It misses something not having the lyrics with it. It becomes a bit lift music, and that's not being disparaging against a great body of work, but you kind of want the lyrics to go with the song but yeah, I've had that on, and then I did have this on the other day, but then I took it off for the Damon Albarn album. I did get Blood, Sweat and Tears, the best of album. I had that on, listened to a couple of tracks, but then I got Damon, and Damon had to go on, so I need to go back to Blood, Sweat and Tears.
They did some great stuff.
Yeah, I'd never really heard of them before. It's only because I can't remember what I picked it up for. Don't know, maybe because it was £1, I think, something along those lines. But that's about what I've been listening to this week, Phil. That and 90s one-hit wonders.
Well, thanks for watching. Join us for another. Hang on, stop press.
Stop the press. I have been listening to something else. The new Matchbox 20 single came out on Friday, and I was listening to that Friday evening and in the car on Saturday. So that's another one to add.
Okay.
I've got to buy the album. I've got to get it on. I'm going to get it on pre-release, and it's $48 to get it posted from America. What?
Okay.
Fly out there and get it. So that's what I've been listening to. That's the complete shebang.
Well, what have you been listening to? Tell us in the comments. We would love to know. We'd like to check it out, and we might even listen to it and give you our view on it as well, or tell us what we ought to be listening to, or why what we've been listening to isn't any good, or whether you like it as well, or whatever you want to tell us. Make a comment, and do please give us a share, give us a like, share us with your friends, and join us.
Don't forget that.
Join us. Oh, subscribe. That's it. That's the word I was trying to think of.
Down there's a button here somewhere. Click it.